Rebecca sat alone at the corner table, watching snowflakes drift past the window like tiny dancers against the darkening sky. Her fingers traced the stem of her wine glass as she checked her phone again. 7:35. He was over half an hour late. The restaurant hummed with holiday cheer around her, couples laughing over candlelit tables, families celebrating together. The warm glow of Christmas lights reflecting off polished surfaces. She felt conspicuously alone in her red dress, the one her daughter insisted she wear. "Mom, you need to put yourself out there," Sarah had said just last week, her voice gentle but firm through the phone from Seattle. "Dad's been gone 3 years now. You can't keep hiding in that house." Rebecca hadn't thought of it as hiding after losing James to cancer. She'd simply been existing, moving through days that blended into each other like watercolors in rain. But Sarah was right, as daughters often are so, when her colleague Margaret suggested a blind date with her friend. Rebecca had surprised herself by saying yes. Now she was regretting it. The waiter approached again, concern in his young eyes. "Can I get you anything else while you wait?" "No, thank you," Rebecca replied, managing a smile. "I'm sure he'll be here soon." But she wasn't sure at all. Maybe this was a sign. Maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe she'd never be ready. She was just reaching for her coat when the restaurant door burst open, bringing with it a gust of cold air and snow. A man stumbled in, tall and broad-shouldered in a tan overcoat, his dark hair dusted with white. He looked around frantically, and when his eyes found hers, relief flooded his face. "Rebecca?" he called out, weaving through tables toward her. "I'm so sorry. I'm David. I know I'm terribly late. Please don't leave." She hesitated, her coat halfway on up close. She could see he was handsome in a weathered way, maybe early 50s, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. There was something genuine in his distress that made her pause. "I was just about to." She admitted. He ran a hand through his hair, scattering droplets of melted snow. "I completely understand if you want to go, but please, let me at least explain." She looked at him for a long moment, then slowly removed her coat. "All right." David sank into the chair across from her, with visible relief. "Thank you." He signaled the waiter, ordered a bourbon, then turned back to her with an expression she couldn't quite read, embarrassment mixed with something else. Something deeper. "I have to be honest with you," he began. "Margaret told me this was a casual dinner. But there's nothing casual about tonight for me." Rebecca felt her guard rise slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he took a breath, "I haven't been on a date in 23 years. Her eyebrows rose. 23 years? "I was married for 21 of them," he continued. "My wife Elizabeth passed away 2 years ago." Rebecca's expression softened immediately. "I'm sorry, I lost my husband 3 years ago." Their eyes met with sudden understanding, that recognition that exists only between people who have walked through the same dark valley. "Then you know," David said quietly, "how strange this feels, like you're betraying them somehow," Rebecca finished, "even though logically you know you're not exactly." The waiter brought David's bourbon and he took a grateful sip. "But that's not why I was late," he said. "That's just why I almost didn't come at all. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to convince myself to walk in." "So what made you so late?" David's jaw tightened. "My daughter, Emma. She's 16. She knew I was going out tonight, and she seemed fine with it this morning. But when I was getting ready to leave, I found her crying in her room." Rebecca's heart constricted. "Oh no." She said she felt like I was replacing her mom. David's voice cracked slightly, like I was erasing Elizabeth from our lives. And I tried to explain that wasn't true. That you can't replace people you love. You just make room for new ones. But she's 16 and it's Christmas Eve, and her mom's been gone 2 years, and nothing I said seemed to help. He stopped, looking down at his hands. "I almost canceled. I probably should have. But my mother lives with us, and she convinced Emma to let me go. She told her that her mom would want me to be happy, that both of us deserve to keep living." Rebecca reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "You're a good father." "I don't know about that," David said. "I left my daughter crying on Christmas Eve to go on a date. No, Rebecca said firmly, you made an incredibly difficult choice to honor a commitment while making sure she was cared for. That's what good parents do. They model that life goes on, even when it's hard. David looked up at her, and she saw moisture in his eyes. Your daughter said something similar? Rebecca smiled almost word for word. She's the one who pushed me to do this. She lives in Seattle now, and she worries about me being alone. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the restaurant noise fading to background. So, here we are, David said. Finally, two people who aren't sure they're ready, who feel guilty for even trying, sitting in a restaurant on Christmas Eve like a couple of nervous teenagers, except teenagers don't come with all this history. Rebecca added all this baggage. Is it baggage? David wondered aloud, or is it just life? The things that made us who we are. Rebecca considered this maybe both. They ordered food, neither particularly hungry, but both grateful for something to do with their hands as the evening progressed. They talked not the superficial conversation of typical first dates, but real talk about grief and guilt, and the strange half-life of widowhood, about children who worry and well-meaning friends who don't understand, about waking up reaching for someone who isn't there, about whether you take off your wedding ring and where you put it. If you do, I still wear mine on a chain, Rebecca confessed, touching her chest where it hung beneath her dress. I couldn't take it off my finger for a year. David admitted. Emma kept asking why I didn't wear it anymore. When I finally did, she was 14 and already dealing with so much. There's no right way through this, Rebecca said. Everyone has an opinion, but none of them have walked in these shoes. Exactly. The restaurant began to empty as the evening wore on. Families heading home to finish Christmas preparations, couples leaving for midnight services. Rebecca glanced at her watch. Almost 10 o'clock. 3 hours had passed like minutes. I should let you get back, she said reluctantly. Emma's probably waiting up. David nodded but made no move to leave. She is, and my mother's definitely waiting to interrogate me. He paused, then asked quietly, Can I see you again? Rebecca felt a flutter in her chest. Unfamiliar and terrifying and wonderful. I'd like that, even though I was late and spent half the evening talking about my dead wife. Especially because of that, Rebecca said. You're honest. That's rare. They stood, gathering coats and scarves outside. The snow had stopped, leaving the world blanketed in white that sparkled under streetlights. David's car was parked near hers. Rebecca, he said as they reached her vehicle, I need to tell you something else. She turned, curious at his serious tone. I came tonight because Margaret said you were kind, he continued. She said you'd understand what I'm going through, but I didn't expect to actually feel hope. I haven't felt that in a long time. Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes. Neither have I. So maybe, David said carefully, we could figure this out together. No expectations, no pressure, just two people who understand that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. I think, Rebecca said slowly. That's exactly what I need. David smiled then, a real smile that reached his eyes and made him look younger. Merry Christmas, Rebecca. Merry Christmas, David. She drove home through empty streets, past houses glowing with Christmas lights, feeling something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of it. The knowledge that life could still surprise her, that her story wasn't over. When she pulled into her driveway, her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. How did it go? Rebecca smiled and typed back, he was late, it was perfect, I'll call you tomorrow. Then another text, this one from an unknown number. David had gotten her number from Margaret. Thank you for waiting. Emma wants to know if you have kids. She's nervous about me dating someone who doesn't understand. Rebecca's heart swelled as she replied, tell her I have a daughter her age at heart, who also worries about her parent dating. Maybe they'd understand each other. The response came quickly. She just smiled for the first time all night. Rebecca sat in her car, looking at her dark house. James's absence still an ache in her chest, but for the first time, that ache was accompanied by something else, a tiny flame of possibility. She touched the ring beneath her dress. I think you'd like him, she whispered. Then she got out of the car and walked toward her front door, toward whatever came next, toward the rest of her life. Because that's what you do. You keep walking, you keep opening yourself to possibility even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, someone walks beside you who understands exactly how brave that is. If this story touched your heart, Please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of hope, and second chances. Leave a comment below telling us about a time you found unexpected joy during a difficult season. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it.